Hi. So my topic is this, as I was instructed, that there is a lot of guys who are thinking that you will maybe in future expand or enter into Czech market. I separate my talk into two parts. In first, I will talk about the Czech e-commerce, because I'm Czech, very easy one. And in second part, I will talk about my businesses. I'm working in the e-pharmacies. So I also wanted to ask, how many of you are working in pharma business? Is somebody here? It's not. In that case, it will be very easy. So let me very briefly introduce myself. I work as a product and project manager. So I'm building the e-shops. Then for a couple of months or years, I'm just improving the e-shops. And then I built another one. So I was working with the biggest retail and e-commerce player in Czech Republic, like, for example, Datart or Avast antivirus. And currently, I'm leading the project of Magento 2 implementation in our company. Let me also very briefly introduce my company. We are currently operating in 6 countries. We have more than 2,000 pharmacies. We are number 1 in Central Europe, and we are number 4th chain in Europe. So pretty big pharmacy chain, let's say. So let's start with the first topic, and that's the Czech e-commerce. And I think the best way how to have a look is to look into the numbers. So how big is the Czech e-commerce? Currently in 2018, it will be 23 billions of zlotys. It's almost the half as it is in Poland. But when you consider then in Czech Republic it's 10 million people, I think its number it's pretty great. The growth it's approximately 20% per year. And this growth rate it's similar like in Poland, so we are growing same way. What is interesting is that in Czech Republic it's more than 40,000 number of e-shops, and this number it's similar like in England. And this is very funny because in Czech Republic everybody want to have their side income and everybody want to have their own business. So a lot of people do like their hobby, their own e-shops, especially the mothers on maternity. It's very famous for them. What I think that's like the top 500 e-shops are holding the 80% of the sale. So the rest one are very, very small ones. Pretty nice number. It's also the share of the e-commerce in retail. Like currently it's 19%. And when you compare it to the other countries, this number it's pretty high. So we're thinking that it's very important importance of e-commerce in the Czech Republic, and I think this number is bigger than in Poland, but I had never seen this statistic for the Polish. Sorry for that, didn't find it. Let's have a look into categories. The biggest one in e-commerce is definitely the electronics. The second one it's fashion. And in fashion, there is currently very interesting competitive because there are 2 new brands on the Czech market. It's the global Zalando and the global About You. They entered very recently into Czech Republic. And there's also the Czech solution. It's called Zoot. And Zoot is currently winning, but with very, let's say, red numbers. Let's have a look which segments are currently most growing. Currently it's most growing the food segment. By food I mean the groceries. So there is a couple of new new companies. They start to deliver the groceries, and they are very, very popular in Czech Republic. So we say that this is like disruption of the e-commerce in Prague and other regions. The second one is definitely the fashion, and I think that there is a lot of space in Czech Republic for the fashion brands. So if you are a fashion brand, maybe Czech e-commerce could be the great place to expand for you. Maybe also the cosmetics. So when it comes to number of the mobile devices, currently it's approximately 40%, which I think it's not high enough, but it's still increasing. Not so big like in Romania or the other countries where this number is much, much higher. So the specifics of Czech e-commerce are, I think, this one, and the biggest is definitely that there's big limitation of the global players, as they are fighting with the local solution. The Google was not number one in Czech Republic for a couple of years, and they start to be number one a couple years ago, and they are still fighting. And also the other global brands. Well, I think that the Czech people, they just like the Czech solution, and they are proud that they can use some local and specific solutions one. So they did it, and these companies really obstacle with this. There is also very low customer loyalty, specifically in the e-commerce. So in the last surveys, I saw that the general number is like 24% of people are loyal to your brand in e-commerce. So they don't care about your brand in Czech Republic. They just care about the product, about the price, and about the delivery time, and nothing else. And because there is so big amount of the e-shop, they just select the speediest one currently. Very important, it's logistic, and I will talk about it a little bit more after this slide. And I think that important specific is also the using the payment methods, because we are very conservative in the Czech Republic, so we are using a lot of cash on delivery and lot of old payment methods, not the new ones. The price comparators are very, very strong in Czech Republic. We have our own Seneo, it's called Heureka, and it's super strong there. So everybody has to be there, everybody uses it there. And last specific, what I think, it's just the high importance of the e-commerce. So if some brand, it's not the online, if there is no pickup points, that's a problem for the brand. So, as I told you before, the king and the most important thing in e-commerce in Czech Republic is this. And this is just the very easy pickup point, just kiosk. You come there, you use their smartphone, and it will open, and you just collect your ordered store. It's very easy, it's very simple, and everybody use this. And the reason why everybody uses this, that the king in Czech Republic, it's not the content, but it's logistic. Everybody all the time just improving their logistic. And the Czech people want to have their goods same day within the hours. They are not willing to wait 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. So if I say just one most important thing about the Czech e-commerce, then it's this, that the logistic is the king in our country currently. You can see that on this website. It's the grocery I talk about. They offered 15 time slots for delivery, and they are able to deliver your food within 90 minutes in the most biggest cities in the Czech Republic, and this is pretty good. I love it. And second example of this is this startup. It's food delivery service. And currently there is also a very interesting situation with the food delivery service. There is global Uber Eats, there is global Volt, and then it's Czech solution. It's called Dáme jídlo. And the Czech solution, it's obviously winning very, very strongly. And this startup, they guarantee that in Prague, in the center of Prague, they deliver your food within 15 minutes. And in 95%, they deliver it till 10 minutes. So they cook their food, they put it to the trucks, to the bikes, and motorbikes, and they just deliver it. They are everywhere. You just place the order through mobile, and sometimes happen that he's there much sooner than you go down with the elevator. And this is the way how people are now thinking in Czech Republic how to deliver this kind of services also in your businesses. What I see also interesting in as a specific of Czech Republic is the payment methods, because the most popular one, it's cash on delivery. 36% use this cash on delivery, and 90% use bank transfer. It's also very popular. Specifically for the fashion segment, it's bank transfer very popular. So the online payments takes only 25%. It's growing, yes, but not so rapidly than in our countries because we are very conservative. And most of people want to have the offline experience, so most of people are using this one. For example, in my business in Czech Republic, we are not allowing to people to do the prepaid in our e-shop because we have 400 pharmacies across the Czech Republic, and we want to push the people to go there and pay there, because when they see the white code, the upselling is much higher than the recommendation engines online. So that's our strategy. In online marketing, you have to count that there is a lot of different traffic sources, because there is a lot of, again, solutions like the Seznam, it's second Google in Czech Republic, and there different price comparisons. So you will have to deal with a lot amount of traffic sources, and you have to count that the very strong, it's the affiliate marketing. The biggest one is CJ, I think it's operating also in Polish market, but this is definitely the second one. And from my point of view, it's also very strange behavior of the Google, because they were not the number one in Czech Republic. So because of this reason, they are releasing their first features in Czech Republic as a first country in Europe very often, because they have to deal with the competitors, not like in other countries. So from my point of view, was very, very interesting the Google Medic update, which was the update of the algorithm, who affected mostly the Medic pages. And on the right side, you can see the traffic of our site in Slovakia, and it fell down very rapidly. But on the left side, Czech side, it has not effect. From my point of view, it's just very strange behavior of the Google, and I'm not able to explain it so well. So this is about the Czech e-commerce. And if you remember just the one thing about the Czech e-commerce, I think the most important are the payment methods. And the second one, it's logistic, which is definitely the king. So if you will, in the future, enter the Czech market, I hope that you will not do it like Uber did in India. I was living in India for 6 months, so I'm very interested in India as a country. And when Uber entered the market there, they just take all the procedures in the global way, and they just implement it without the change. And what do you think happened when you have to pay it with your card for the taxi in India, when nobody has the credit card? Nobody was using it, and after I think 1 year, they just left the country. And the winner of this country was the Grab, which it's local way of Uber. So currently, Uber it's not delivering in India. So I hope that you will not make the same mistake like the Uber did, and you will count with this Czech specifics. So my small second topic, it's the online pharmacies challenges, what I'm dealing with in my segment. The first one is this word. And to be honest, I start to hate this word because everybody on C-level and all the PR and marketing guys are using this every day. And everybody say that this is the best way, this is the only true way how to success in the e-commerce. And to be honest, I disagree. And I will tell you why, because in our case, when you have 2,000 stores on the different markets with the different legislative, it's pretty complicated. And I have to deal every day with the mindsetting and mentality of the offline people. And to change it to the one way, it's pretty complicated. So the definition of omnichannel is that it's to provide the same customer experience across all the channels. But does it mean that you need to have the same promotions, the same purchasing, the same pricing, etc., etc.? This is seriously challenging for us. So in our case, in our strategy, it's not do the omnichannel. We are trying to do very well-managed multi-channel. And I'm very sure that this is a much better way for us than do this buzzword. So my delivery for is, I think, that don't listen all the best strategies you are hearing. Don't listen all the best practices. Just use your own ways and find your own ways. That's what we are currently doing in Dr.Max. Second challenge we are dealing with in the pharmacies in all this region in 6 countries, it's obviously the legal restrictions. Sorry. For example, in Poland, online pharmacy it's not allowed to use the loyalty program. It's not allowed to use the PPC because it's a pharmacy. In Slovakia, each pharmacy store need to be their unique legal entity. And also the loyalty program has to be the different legal entity. And that's very funny when you combine it with the GDPR. So we are dealing with this, and we know that in the future in online will come some disruption. Everybody want to have their prescriptions online and do it online because there are big business behind this. But we are not pushing into this because we are more conservative in this way, because we know that we have the white coats on our pharmacies, and that's our cult, let's say. So we are not pushing the innovations so fast. On the other hand, pushing our pharmacists and our people into the online world. The third one, it's sustainability of growth, and that's what we have to deal very, very rapidly every year when all the businesses across the countries we are operating are growing too fast. And sometimes it's very challenging to deal with the too fast growth. So sometimes we are not delivering the new projects, and sometimes we want to stop the growth. Seriously. And the last challenge we currently have, it's profitability, and definitely most important one. In Czech Republic, there are 2 streams of e-shop. The first one are the e-shops. They are growing rapidly, no matter what. But they have very, very red numbers all the times. And the second stream, they just want to earn some money. It's our case. And the behavior of two different streams, it's different a little bit. And it's very challenging how to do the profitable business in these shops. So these four are our main challenges in the e-commerce, and this is what I'm dealing in my case in our businesses. And that's all from my side.